Shots fired at Rihanna's Beverly Hills mansion. Police say the superstar was home but not harmed. Tonight, a suspect is in custody.
Someone drove to Rihanna's home with an AR-15, parked outside the gate, and opened fire while she was inside. That's not a rumor. That's what Los Angeles police confirmed happened on the afternoon of March 8, 2026. And the fact that no one was killed that day had nothing to do with the shooter's intentions. It had everything to do with how quickly law enforcement responded and how the situation unfolded in the minutes after the trigger was pulled. Here's the full picture of what happened, what investigators found, and why this incident is more alarming than the initial headlines suggested. Just after 1 p.m. on a Sunday, a white Tesla pulled up outside the gate of the Beverly Crest property that Rihanna shares with ASAP Rocky. The neighborhood sits in the hills above Los Angeles. Secluded, private, the kind of area where people with serious money go specifically to disappear from public view. Rihanna and Rocky purchased the mansion in 2021. On paper, it should be one of the safest addresses in the city. The suspect parked across from the gate and fired multiple rounds toward the property. Witnesses in the area reported hearing between 7 and 10 shots. Investigators later confirmed the weapon was an AR-15 style rifle. Not a handgun, not a random weapon someone grabs in a moment of rage. A high-powered rifle requires preparation. It requires transport. It requires a decision made before you leave the house. Several rounds struck the exterior gate. One bullet penetrated a wall of the mansion itself. A vehicle parked near the property was also hit. When detectives examined the scene afterward, spent shell casings were collected from the street, and bullet damage was documented across multiple parts of the exterior. The direction and trajectory of the shots told investigators exactly where the suspect was standing and what she was aiming at. Rihanna was inside the house when the shots were fired. Whether ASAP Rocky or their 3 young children were home at the time was not confirmed by authorities, but the possibility alone made the situation feel significantly heavier for everyone following the story. A bullet that passes through an exterior wall is no longer just property damage. It becomes a near miss. The suspect did not stay at the scene. Witnesses reported seeing the white Tesla accelerate away from the cul-de-sac immediately after the shooting. But this was not a situation where someone fires and disappears quietly. Calls flooded the 911 system within seconds, and given who the target was, police responded with the kind of urgency usually reserved for active threat situations. A helicopter was deployed almost immediately and located the vehicle traveling toward Coldwater Canyon Drive, one of the main roads connecting the hillside neighborhoods to the rest of the city. From above, the aircraft tracked the Tesla while ground units moved in from multiple directions. There was no dramatic high-speed chase. The car eventually pulled into the parking structure of the Sherman Oaks Galleria shopping center, roughly 8 miles from the property. Officers surrounded the vehicle. The suspect, a woman approximately 30 years old, was taken into custody without resistance. The rifle believed to have been used in the shooting was recovered at the scene. From the first 911 call to the moment the suspect was in handcuffs, approximately 30 minutes had passed. The case was immediately handed to the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division, the unit that handles major crimes involving high-profile victims. When that department takes over an investigation, it signals that police are treating the incident as targeted, not random. And the details supported that reading. The suspect had driven to a specific address on a specific private street. She had stopped directly in front of the gate. She had fired multiple rounds toward the structure using a weapon that requires deliberate preparation. People do not accidentally end up outside a celebrity's home with a loaded AR-15. What investigators needed to determine was the why. And that required digging through everything the suspect left behind digitally: phone records, search history, social media activity, any communication that might reveal whether she had been watching Rihanna, researching her address, or expressing fixation online before the shooting. To understand why that digital trail matters so much, it helps to look at what has happened around Rihanna before. This was not the first time someone had targeted her. In 2014, a man named Kevin McGlynn was caught on surveillance cameras delivering threatening letters to her apartment building in New York. The content was disturbing enough that authorities moved quickly. He was arrested, and a judge later ruled him mentally unfit to stand trial, sending him to a psychiatric facility instead. In 2015, another individual began posting direct threats on social media and shared a photograph taken outside her Los Angeles home, indicating he had already traveled to find her location. Police opened an investigation after the posts surfaced. Then, in 2018, a man named Eduardo Leon managed to get inside her Hollywood Hills home by jumping the fence and disabling part of the security system. He stayed inside for nearly 12 hours before one of her assistants discovered him. When questioned, he said he had come hoping to meet her. He later faced stalking and vandalism charges. Each of those situations followed a recognizable pattern: obsession building online, then escalating into a physical attempt to reach her. Each one ended without anyone being seriously hurt. The 2026 incident breaks that pattern entirely. The people in those earlier cases were trying to get close to Rihanna. The person on March 8th arrived with a rifle and fired at the building she was standing in. That is a different category of threat, and it is why investigators are approaching this as something more serious than a stalking case that got out of hand. The key question, and the one that remained unanswered in the immediate aftermath, was motive. At the time of the arrest, authorities had not publicly identified the suspect or revealed any known connection between her and Rihanna. There were no confirmed prior threats, no documented history between them, and no statement from the suspect explaining what she intended. Investigators were working through several possibilities. One was the pattern familiar from celebrity stalking cases: someone who had developed an obsessive fixation and eventually acted on it. Another was something more targeted and premeditated, potentially involving someone with a specific grievance. A third possibility, which police had not ruled out early in the investigation, was whether the suspect had acted alone or had received information from someone else about Rihanna's location or schedule. Celebrity addresses, even in private neighborhoods, sometimes circulate in online spaces. Security teams work to suppress that information, but it is rarely fully contained. If the suspect had researched the address using public records, social media posts that inadvertently revealed the location, or information shared in certain online communities, that trail would be visible in her search history. That digital evidence, what she searched, when she searched it, what she posted, who she communicated with in the days and weeks before the shooting, would likely form the foundation of the prosecution's case. In the hours following the incident, neither Rihanna nor ASAP Rocky released a public statement. Their representatives declined to comment while the investigation remained active. For many people following the story, that silence was noticeable. For anyone who understands how situations like this work, it made complete sense. A statement issued in the immediate aftermath of a criminal investigation can complicate proceedings, create conflicting narratives, or invite speculation that interferes with the legal process. Lawyers and security teams almost universally advise high-profile figures to stay quiet until investigators have established a clearer picture. There is also the dimension that sits behind all the legal strategy: the human one. Rihanna is a mother of 3 young children. Whatever else she is, a global music icon, a billion-dollar beauty brand founder, one of the most recognized people on the planet, she is also someone who lives in that house with her family. The idea that someone parked outside that house and fired a rifle at it while she was inside is not an abstract headline. It is a specific, terrifying thing that happened to her on a Sunday afternoon. The silence in the hours after was not indifference. It was a family trying to process something that no level of fame or security prepares you for. What happens next depends on what investigators find. If the digital evidence shows a pattern of obsessive behavior building over time, this case will likely move through the legal system as an aggravated stalking and attempted assault situation. If it reveals something more deliberate, a planned attack with a specific motive that goes beyond fixation, the charges and the story become significantly more serious. The suspect is in custody, the weapon has been recovered, the physical evidence from the scene is being analyzed. And somewhere in the files that investigators are working through right now are the answers to the question that the initial arrest left open. Why did she go there? Until that answer surfaces, what March 8th established is clear enough on its own. Someone made a decision, drove to one of the most private addresses in Los Angeles, and fired a military-style rifle at a home where a woman and her children were living their lives. The fact that everyone walked away from that afternoon is not a small thing. It very easily could have gone the other way. What do you think investigators are going to find when they dig into this suspect's background? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay updated as more details come out, subscribe and turn on notifications.